Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Economic Development Asset Management Committee meeting for Tuesday, the 25th of January. I'm not going to go through straight into the agenda because we've got somebody from STEP here to talk about fusion. So with your approval, we'll get them to do their presentation first. Is anybody objecting to that? That way, we're not holding them back. We keep them on board, and they might sort of grant us that we that we're successful. I don't know if this helps or not. So are you ready to sort of give the presentation? Oh, you're giving the presentation. Oh, they're answering the technical questions that you might have. Okay, lovely. If you want to lead on them, Matthew.
Sorry, Chair. Could we just check the minutes and the apologies first?
Do you have to do that first?
Yes,
okay,
please.
Sorry. Okay, then item 1, then minutes of the last meeting held on 7th December. Are we all happy that that's a true reflection? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Pringle replaces Councillor Hallahan for this meeting only. Thank you.
Welcome, Councillor Pringle. Always a pleasure to have you in my committee. Right, declarations of interest of members and officers. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to inform the committee that I've been appointed to the board of the D2N2 local enterprise partnership.
Lovely, thanks for that. Anybody else?
So just an odd interest in the Stapleford Towns deal, in that as a deputy leader, Boxter Council, I have been party to discussions about this at an officer level. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I don't think that precludes you from commenting or debating or voting. No, but thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else? That's lovely. Thank you very much. Right, now we're going to the update on the Carbon Step initiative.
Thank you, Chairman. So, colleagues, this was asked for at the last EDAM committee when I reported back on the success of the Nottinghamshire sites in terms of the shortlisting process that UK AEA have recently been through, and the fact that we had one of our sites in the 5 shortlisted sites and one as
Let me just stop you. That's that £5 to the chairman's charity. That goes Cubley, okay? Sorry, continue.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say that this is a follow-up to that, to give a bit more detail for EDAM committee members going as we move through this process. Just to say that on the line we have Saran Postrans and also Chris Warwick from the UK AEA. So if there are any questions at the end of the presentation, they'll be happy to answer anything that I'm not able to. So just going through the process, just to give members an update, STEP is the acronym for Spherical Tokamak for Energy Production, which is a UK AEA programme to design a fusion and build a prototype fusion energy plant by 2040. It was included in the government's 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution, which was published November 2020, and there's funding to develop the concept design by 2024, and I'll go through the programme a little bit later. Effectively, the fusion plant and the fusion energy would provide a reliable, virtually limitless, low carbon energy source to meet future energy demand within the country. And I'll come on to the sources of fusion and how that works. There's no hazardous waste from the process, but there are some small amounts from the plant maintenance, similar to what you would find with some other industrial facilities, so very low in terms of and virtually zero hazardous waste as part of the process. Next, it's comparable in scale and value to a fully operational power plant. So in terms of how it operates, very, very similar to a fully operational power station, and there will be significant funding to build the facility. As part of the planning process, it's consented as a nationally significant infrastructure project, and will be determined by central government as part of that process. There are some other waste elements to the fusion plant where you can use it for other sources of use. So, for example, hydrogen production. And as I've already mentioned, there was a national call for sites, of which Nottinghamshire has been successful. Moving on to the nominations, you'll all be aware that 2 sites were nominated, so West Burton and Ratcliffe-on-Soar. As I said earlier, Ratcliffe-on-Soar made the shortlist with West Burton as a reserved site. The UKAEA felt that West Burton was of such a significance in terms of the evaluation and bid evaluation process that they wanted to keep it on the reserved list. It was the only one that was chosen to be on the reserved list in the event of another site not making it through the shortlisted phase. You'll all be aware by now that on Friday there was an announcement that actually West Burton was the preferred site, and obviously we can answer further questions on that moving as they've undertaken the due diligence. But I think this creates a massive opportunity not only for the West Burton site but also in terms of the Ratcliffe-on-Soar developments that we know will take place there. If I can just play you a couple of videos just to explain fusion, the story of fusion, and then the next slide gives a bit of a video presentation of the sources of fusion energy and how it's made. So Steve, would you mind playing the video?
Doesn't appear there's any sound, but it doesn't matter.
It's quite impressive with the music. Steve,
Could I-
perhaps move us on to the next
Could I
slide.
suggest, Chairman, the next time they do it, they increase the font.
Apologies.
So skip that second bit.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Steve. So just to give a bit of a summary of the video. So effectively, it's an attempt to replicate the process of the sun on Earth in the chamber, in the tokamak. It differs significantly from nuclear fission, which is the other element or the other benefit of this particular program. Zero greenhouse gas emissions as part of the process. The only gas that's produced is helium, which is a non-toxic gas. It's safe. In effect, if there's any disturbance, it stops as opposed to anything else. And because of the way that the reaction spins in the tokamak. The raw materials for energy production are found in water and in the Earth's crust. So these are things that are just found on Earth. And it's not affected by the weather and can produce energy on demand. So these are the sort of benefits which I'm sure colleagues from UKAA can talk a little bit more about should you so wish. The next element is around the strategic opportunity. So clearly this gives us a real strategic opportunity as a county and as a region. There's significant value through the supply chain, through the fusion power plant itself, from design right through to the construction phase of the project. And I'll talk a little bit more later about the types of jobs that can be expected from this. There'll be significant skills required for this, not only in the plant itself, but in the supply chain. And some of the key players in this industry are actually located in the region. So again, we have a real advantage, a strategic advantage over perhaps some of the other sites in this race. It's a key priority, and it's been identified within the green growth, which is led by the Midlands Engine. And as I said, Nottinghamshire, through this piece of work, we found that the region is really a world leader in this area, but also in green energy production. So just picking up on some of the supply chain benefits, as I say, there's already a very good industry for private sector fusion in this region. There'll probably be a design and development stage, which will be around about £220 million or worth £220 million. That's just the first element, and that's to be delivered by 2024 as part of the programme from UKAA. In terms of the fusion energy employment and industry, there's around about 4,000 jobs generated annually. So significant number of jobs generated by this. The plants themselves employ between 500 and 1,000 people, and at its peak, we expect there to be around about 3,500 workers as part of the construction process for the new fusion plant. There's been significant private sector investment in this over between the period 2002-2018, so circa 1.8 preferred site. And the Secretary of State will then announce the host site at the end of this year. That's the current programme that the UKAA are working towards. As I've said earlier, 2024 is when the concept design would be approved, and a significant amount of technical due diligence ongoing with that, with an expectation that construction would probably start around about 2032 following a detailed permission and consent process. And operation then being operational 2040 is the target. That's it, Chairman. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody got any comments or questions? Kate?
Yes, thank you for that. It's really very interesting, isn't it? Potentially quite exciting. I can see that. So just a few questions. First off, the shift from Radcliffe to West Burton. I noticed on the presentation yellow pages you sent out with the report, page 25, you have it'll form the centre of an ecosystem, ultimately supporting thousands of high-quality, high-tech jobs, which is great. So I suppose the question I would ask on that one is, how will that then impact? Will that impact negatively on the Ratcliffe site? and will that, but will West Burton benefit in the same way, given it's in a different geographical area? That's the first question. I think as well, the other thing, I know I've talked about this before, but I'm a little bit concerned about the impact on the bid for the Freeport and the Urban Development Corporation, because that is heavily predicated on an awful lot of stuff kind of happening in a smaller geographical area than this, does it? So if it goes to West Burton, how is it going to impact on that? How is that going to play out, really? And I noticed as well, when one of my colleagues kind of looked at this, she said, well, in terms of the partners, and the partners you have set up, some of them are kind of south of the county focus. I'm thinking in particular about the universities. And so what we want to make sure is actually that our good local universities are still kept as partners and still involved in this, still engaged in that, even given it's kind of quite a bit further away. I think as well, I'd be interested in terms of the safety of this. And I know Councillor Guilfoyle's mentioned this, he might say something in a minute, but in terms of the consultation and the safety, I think it would be really helpful for people to have a really locally, to have a real detailed understanding of actually why it's safe. I know you went through it, it was quite brief, wasn't it? I think in terms of how safe it is, why it's so safe, and involve that when you kind of come to do the consultation, so to make people kind of properly aware of the fact that, you know, it's all going to be fine. Because as soon as you start talking about nuclear and fusion, as people are quite understandably, I think, aren't they going to be a little bit concerned? Yeah, there you go. I think that's it. Thank you.
Before I bring in, I want to answer the bit about Radcliffe, really. I think the reality is Radcliffe had that much choice of what they can put on that site. This will have no impact in terms of the development of what's going to happen there, the Freeport and everything like that. So it's not going to have a negative impact at all in terms of that. When we were told we had 2 sites in the initial 8, was really pleased, but actually our leaning was to West Burton because we felt that the best or the most significant regeneration benefit would be if it was in that area. Okay, because that's where they need the jobs and skills and all that sort of thing. Radcliffe is quite well supplied by that sort of thing because it's got the airport and it's got all the other industries around there that feed the people that live around there. So in terms of regeneration, we were sort of hoping that West Burton would be the one. But we wasn't going to talk any of them down because it's nice to have 2 in a pot of 8. Yeah, so from an economic regeneration point of view, it's better where it is from our point of view, I think, from Nottinghamshire. In terms of that. So no, it won't have a negative impact. There's the reality is that there's quite complex land ownership there, and they was choosing which ones they wanted to have, and that's why the choice has been as it is in terms of them not going for fusion. Yeah, does that make sense?
So is the land ownership the key issue here? Then is that what you're saying?
No, it's not the key issue, but it's part of the issue. Yeah, but if you know the area well enough, like Radcliffe as a whole, the amount of employment opportunities around there compared to West Burton, there's no comparison. Okay, so there's lots of opportunities, and if the Freeport goes there and all the other things that's planned for there, it's going to be a well supplied area anyway, well supported area. So from our point of view, it would have been better. Now, we would have been happy for it to be in Radcliffe in reality, because to have this as our in Nottinghamshire, you know, the first one I think in the world is an amazing thing, and you know the actual amount of investment just to set it up is about £19 billion. Yeah, so it's massive investment. So in terms of the Freeport and everything at Radcliffe, they've got lots of options already on the table that's going to happen at that site. So it's not going to be a site that's left wanting for anything, I don't think. And that's the impression I get, and I'll get Matt to either confirm or deny that. But as all the briefings I've been on, that's my understanding of the situation for that. So that's why I was particularly pleased that it was going to West Burton. Yeah, I'll bring in.
Yeah, that's correct, Chairman. If I could perhaps answer the question about the universities, Councillor Foles. So just in terms of the local universities, as I said, as part of the presentation, working very closely with the Energy Research Accelerator, and they are engaging with all of the relevant universities in the region, but also we're contacting and having dialogue directly with our local universities around the input that they can provide as part of the process. There's a bit of a collaboration of the Energy Research Accelerator, which represents a number of universities in the region, and Nottingham University in particular, and Nottingham Trent University. So those are the discussions as part of the wider stakeholder group. Obviously, in terms of the slide, I couldn't put on all of the stakeholders that we're working with because they are significant in terms of backing the bid process. In terms of the safety of this, the comment is well made. I can only go as far as to say that the tokamak spins, and that is what it does. It's fusion, and if it goes wrong, it stops, and there is no hazardous or safety issue with the plant process. My colleagues from UK AEA, so Suran, Postrans, and Chris, may want to say a little bit more on that.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, happy to say something just in addition. Of course, safety is one of the key considerations in all of this. What we're planning to do when we come out to talk to the community, obviously this is a really early stage in the process. So at this point, we're all about providing information, and we absolutely have a set of slides. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do this engagement virtually, not in real life. But we have a set of slides that we're going to share with the community that deal with all of the key issues, of which safety is absolutely one of those.
Okay, you happy? Okay, yeah. Anything else? No? Okay, I've got David next.
Thank you, Judge. I'm just wondering whether we actually consulted with Rolls-Royce as a partner on this particular project as well, and I don't notice their logo on this particular thing. Can I just ask about the low-level waste that's produced? Is it inert, and will it be disposed of properly? And the helium gas, will that be tapped into as well as being used for sale rather than being let into the atmosphere? Thank you.
Yeah,
Chris,
the experts, I think,
Chris could take that one, please.
Because I saw the blank face of Matt.
Call me an expert when you've heard the answer. Let's good afternoon, everybody, from Oxfordshire to Nottinghamshire. Let's just discuss the helium first of all. Helium is clearly an inert gas, and that is the byproduct from the reaction itself. Please be assured you wouldn't release the helium to the atmosphere. It is actually a greenhouse gas in its own right, and it would not be in your interest to do that. We would capture it, and we would almost certainly use it within the plant itself. Liquid helium as a cryogenic would be very important to us in parts of the plant, so we would use it in a cryogenic cycle, and it wouldn't be released to the atmosphere.
Anything else, David?
Yes. On a sense of scale, then, can you give me some idea of the sense of scale of this particular plant? Is it going to be contained in one building, or will it be spread over a vast 10 acres, 20 acres? I don't know.
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's contained within the footprint of the power station, so it's not going to be, extending beyond that. I'm right. Yeah, right in saying. Everybody's nodding. So yeah. Yep. Okay. I've got Glyn next.
Thank you, Chairman. I think obviously when you hear the word nuclear, that does bring about connotations, and people do get a bit excited around that. From my point of view, listening to what's been said and some of the explanations that Matt has given to me, I'd like to see a little bit more detail, but I think this is probably a brilliant opportunity for Bassetlaw to replace what was a significant industry, the energy industry out there that's gone into decline for various reasons. I think it would be brilliant. I think it's like you, my personal, and I would say this because I come from there, but I think it's logical that is a place to be put, and I think probably it's one of the best sites in the country. So, from me, I can't wait to see the first shovel in the ground. The concern I've got in reality is the actual timing from the initial decision by the Secretary of State, 2022, to actually the operation beginning. And obviously the length of time in between where it talks about concept designs approved, etc., etc. I'm sort of, I was the other end thinking they've already got a design. What they're doing is coming and they're looking for a site, and it's going to be starting very quickly. So the question I would ask is, how much time can be shaved off that initial program that we've got here to get it sooner rather than later? I'll look at that. I'm not going to be around looking on those dates. Hopefully, but I won't. 2044. It's a long. 2040 is a long time off. So, is there any way in which those dates can be sort of brought forward? Because energy is crucial to this country anyway, and look at the difficulties that we've got now. So anything where we can fast forward this project would be brilliant, and in particular brilliant for Bassetlaw. So I'm sure that you've already discounted the other sites because of the feeling within this chamber.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Before I bring the experts in on that, I share your frustration because I doubt I'll be here either. And it would be lovely to see this up and running and working. But yeah, just to allay your fears, it's not nuclear fusion. Okay, so it's not. That's why the safety of it is so good. As Matt said, if it breaks, it just stops. So it's unlike a nuclear reactor where if it breaks, it gets hot and explodes. This just stops. So you stop producing the power, I would imagine, and that's when they'll start running around to make sure it starts spinning again. But I'll let the experts come in terms of the timescale. Because I think because of the amount of money that's been spent on it, and probably as a case of where they are in, as you saw in that slide, it's okay in a lab, but getting it to actually being produced out there in a power station, maybe this has been proactive, thinking that we're going to get there by time that we can build a power station. But I'll let the experts answer that.
Shall I go, Chris? Because it's more of a exciting question. Yeah, that's fine. So, yeah, I think the chances, if I'm being really honest, the chances of us being able to shorten the timescale are small. And the reason for that is basically that with any major infrastructure project, it takes time to get the permissions and consents you need. It takes time to develop the site in terms of doing all the environmental surveys and all of those things that you need to do before you even get to construction. So being realistic about it, I think 2040 is a reasonable time frame. Sorry, not to give you better news.
You have to live longer, Glenn. That's what it is. Thank you for that. I've got. Any more questions on that? No. You happy?
No, just a time delay. Clearly, we've got a site there that is not totally, and planning permissions only last for so long as well in some cases, and obviously if there are people who would oppose that, clearly if you leave a site not worked on or anything else, gives more chance for that to be opposed to.
Yeah, I think it's classed as a national significant site, so I don't think actually, if it's decided that's where the site's going to be, I don't think there's much anybody could actually do to stop that happening. Yeah, I think because of what it is and what it does, actually, apart from people living really close that might have a fear about the safety, everybody else would think actually it's a good thing because of its green credentials. So you'd hope that the public would get round it, but they will only get round it and behind it if we make sure we do our job properly in letting people know exactly what it does, exactly what the environmental benefits of it are and everything like that. I think I'm right in saying that, aren't I, in terms of national significance? Yeah, it's one of those things on that. I've got Steve next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a bit perplexed, really, in that obviously we, as a council, we're members of the East Midlands Development Corporation, or hopefully will become the East Midlands Development Corporation, as are several of the districts and boroughs, including the one where I'm deputy leader of a Broxtowe. And this is the first time that I've heard that the county is holding a position of favouring one site over the other. So I'm just interested to know who's decided that and why that hasn't been conveyed to other members of the East Midlands Development Corporation.
I'll answer that because it's me that said it. It's not a case of favouring. It's a case of understanding economic development and economic benefits within the confines of Nottinghamshire. Yeah, we know the demographics of Nottinghamshire, and we know that up in the north, i.e. West Burton area, what the demographics is and what the economic situation is up there. So it wasn't a fact of preferring a site over another. We was absolutely thrilled to have two in the last 8. Yeah, and when Radcliffe was picked, absolutely thrilled that Radcliffe was picked. Absolutely, because it's great. It's great for Nottinghamshire. We want one. We want this fusion site in Nottinghamshire. Economically, in terms of regeneration, it would be preferable that it's up there because they need it more. That's all it is. They need that economic regeneration up there. Jobs, skills, and all that investment in that area. Radcliffe is getting millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds invested in that area anyway. Yeah, whereas West Burton actually wasn't. So it's not about preferring one over the other. It's about recognising the significance of the economic regeneration benefit in each area. And if you look at that, where you've got no allegiance to either, because I don't live or represent either of them, for Nottinghamshire, it would have been preferable it'd be there. That's all. Nothing about preferring a site over other. It's about the economic benefit to that area that would be more preferable in terms of the people within Nottinghamshire. Okay? I think that's only for me to answer, because it was, unless you want to add to that.
Thanks, Chairman. Just to offer committee members the reassurance that the business case around the Development Corporation and the Freeport isn't impacted by this. So there is still a very compelling business case and investment proposition in and around the Ratcliffe-on-Soar site and the wider Development Corporation. So perhaps members could see this as being an addition to the pipeline of growth and development opportunities that we've got in Nottinghamshire and the East Midlands. But to offer you that comfort, the business case for DevCo and Freeport are not affected by this.
Okay. Thanks for that. I've got Mike next.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm really glad you said that, Adrian. And I think it's important that the site has moved away from the Radcliffe site for exactly the reasons that we spoke about, in particular because I think there's a long way to go with Freeport and issues that's along that line anyway. The one thing I don't understand about fusion, because this is knockout as far as I'm concerned, to be quite honest, as regards the power.
Sorry, Mike, can you just move the mic a bit closer to you?
This is knockout as far as I'm concerned with regards being able to power us for the future in the way that it does. It's unbelievable, the reading that I've done on it. The one thing I'm not sure of is how the storage is made, because if the plant stops, what storage facilities are in place, and will they be storage facilities that are actually on the site, or will they be storage facilities that are elsewhere that can provide temporary power at that point in time? Also, we're obviously going to have a huge amount of traffic less than what Burton's been used to in the past. That, I think, needs to be taken into account from the environmental point of view when we're talking about the plant itself, but also the extended issues with regards transport. I think that's huge. I'm not sure that I can't see where there's a relationship between the development or the technical college area or whatever, the university at Radcliffe, how that would tie in with Burton for this type of energy for hydrogen itself, and would it not be more prudent to build something on a university on or near a plant that is producing this type of energy?
Great points. I don't know the answers to any of them. All I see it as, Mike, really, is, particularly with the timescale, what that does afford us to do is when we are selected. So when we're selected as it being West Burton, we've then got a timescale to work to make sure that that we get all the training, all the sort of education, all the universities on board to make sure that the people of Nottinghamshire benefit from what's being done, because they'll have the skills and skills to be able to take part and do. So that, to me, that's one of the good things about the timescale, even though it is frustrating that there's a timescale. And whether or not we could build a university in and around, I know, for example, if you take Newark and Sherwood District Council, for example, they're building an IASTI, which is about sort of aerospace and everything to do with flying. So they're building it. It doesn't have to be a big university canvas, does it? And often with it being on site, that might be a benefit. That might be what the £19 billion has got within that. Within that, we don't know yet, but we are aware of the possible impacts to the road infrastructures, and we'll be working very closely with them when they select our site to make sure that it's not a burden on us as a council to provide that infrastructure. It should come out of the big pot.
If I can, Chairman,
Yeah?
I appreciate Glyn's support for Bassett Laurier, but I'm sure that Ollerton could say $1.5 billion immediately if we just bring it to Ollerton.
Unfortunately, you haven't got a site there, mate. But no, I'd love it to be in Newark and Sherwood district area for obvious reasons. But in the reality is, everywhere in Nottinghamshire will be able to tap into this. This is going to be such a big thing that it's incumbent on us to make sure that we utilise that as best we can for the people in Nottinghamshire. So I know, for example, that Newark and Sherwood District Council will begin their 10 penneth in to make sure that we might want the college in our patch, if you like. So there'll be a lot of that going on, because it's really important that as many people from Nottinghamshire benefit from this when we select them.
If I can,
yeah, of course,
to jump in again. Sorry. So the infrastructure for supply of power is already in place, which makes complete sense.
Well, I'm going to let them answer that because I couldn't really answer that, Mike.
Yeah. So my question is, what area are we looking at being able to provide power over and above? I'm assuming it's over and above the coal plants as we have them now.
Well, I think in what you said, it was about the same as. So it's about the same as a normal power station. But I'll bring the experts in because I don't want to embarrass him.
Thanks. And Saran can step in on all the STEP-related stuff. STEP is a prototype power plant, so it's on the scale of a modest power station, and it is anticipated, as I understand it, that it would only run for a few hours at a time. And indeed, any fusion plant in the future may well do that. Of course, electricity is on a national grid. And we've spoken to the national grid many times about future fusion provision onto the grid. And if they know exactly when things are coming on, they can even everything out. I mean, there are all sorts of sources onto the grid at the minute, as we know. There's coal and there's nuclear and there's renewable, which is very transient by its very nature. A predictable supply doesn't have to be continuous. So us knowing that we would run for a few hours at a time, for instance, with STEP would not be a particular problem at all for the grid. Does that help answer your question?
It does, but is there a negative in the plant running longer or 24/7 at all?
Not at all. Not at all. There are engineering and technology challenges for us to run continuously. It's not completely out of the question, and indeed that's what you would wish to do. That's what much of baseload does do. But what I'm saying is, if you were running not continuously for hours at a time and then off for hours, that does not really weaken the case too much for how useful fusion would be onto a grid.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks very much. I've got Ed next.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondered how much energy has actually been produced at any one time at the moment, say in terms of kilowatts or megawatts?
I don't think I'll try and answer that one. You're on mute.
You're muted.
2 years, apologies. From fusion was the question specifically. Yeah.
But basically, how much energy has it actually produced at any one time in terms of, is it kilowatts, is it megawatts?
So the plan for STEP is 100 megawatts.
Okay. 100 megawatts. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Is that everybody? Right, I've just got a couple actually, because in the presentation I heard hydrogen production mentioned. Is that right? And if it is, I'm not a major fan of electric cars because I see what needs to be done to get the batteries for electric cars, and it really worries me in terms of what people being exploited effectively. So I was just wondering, does it produce enough hydrogen to say provide for a fleet of council buildings to work off hydrogen? Because it's, you know, we need to be looking at alternative methods of moving cars around as well. So it's about scale really in terms of what the byproducts are.
Chris, shall I go or do you want to go?
You go. You go.
Okay. So at the moment, so STEP's a prototype. So we're still going to be sort of playing with different ways in which we could use the energy that comes out of it. So electricity is always where we start from, generating electricity to go on the grid. But what we're doing at the moment is just looking at how else you might be able to use the energy that you create from fusion. So one of those things could be hydrogen production. One of those things could be things like desalination plants in other areas of the world, or district heating, production of medical isotopes. It could be a number of ways that you could use fusion. So STEP is all about proving the electricity generation point, but at the same time looking at how you could then build commercial plants that use fusion to do other things.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Has anybody else got a question? Sorry, Mike.
So thanks again, Chairman. So is there a unit cost difference to how we see the production of electricity from fusion as to regards the coal supply that we're doing now? And are you able to share that with us at all?
Being honest, we're at a really early stage. We don't know yet. We don't quite know what that's going to look like. We're doing loads of costing work at the moment, but we don't know the answer as yet.
More generally, outside of STEP, modelling, and it's very difficult because you're modelling something that's not here till 2040 against what the cost of electricity is now. But the modelling that has been done suggests it's competitive. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be cheaper because no one can predict what the price of energy and electricity will be. That would be foolish, especially at the minute. But it looks competitive with other forms of electricity production, including renewables and nuclear and gas.
Very important as well. You know, I'm in favour that we have our own supply of power, not relying on papers like Russia, particularly now. Mike in Trinity, do you want to ask a question?
Not a question so much, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Certainly agree as a Nottingham councillor on the levelling up of infrastructure within the county, and as with Councillor Guilfoyle, absolutely delighted as someone representing a district in Bassetlaw at the opportunity. From transport point of view, we see a lot of transport coming from West Burton, dealing with Ash, etc., through Retford. So, you know, if we remove that, that's a terrific benefit. We've all seen the rundown of mining and power generation industries in our area, so that this is an opportunity for a fresh impetus for significant industry and high-tech industry as well for the area. In terms of timescales for operation, then I know from my own experience where I was on a build for a gas turbine power station at Little Barford in St Neots. I mean, just from clearing the site and getting ready to build, it was a number of years. But what I can say is that the operators are very, very keen to get those stations back up and running and start getting some return on those that investment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, I'll draw it to a close then. Just like to thank you very much for coming on, because there were some technical questions there, which I'm glad that Matt hasn't had to answer, or me. So thank you very much for that. And
it's a pleasure.
We look forward to being selected, and then we can get to know you more and move this project forward. So thank you very much for giving us your time. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay, all this was to note, so it doesn't have to be proposed or anything. Are we happy to just move on then? Okay, then that takes us then on to item 4, which is the update on the D2N2 LEP and the East Midlands engine.
Thanks, Chairman. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the work of the D2N2 LEP and the Midlands engine partnership, as well as seeking approval to fund these organisations until the end of this financial year. So whilst there is a government review being undertaken on the LEP, and we're expecting to hear back imminently on the future of the LEPs, the LEP has been a route to access large-scale funding opportunities, such as the Get Britain Building Fund that we've recently been successful in securing funds, as well as facilitating networking opportunities with regional stakeholders and supporting policies for prioritising inclusive and green economic growth. The Midlands Engine has a number of key pieces of work that we've been doing as well as a pan-regional partnership of scale and influence, focusing on inclusive growth. The details are included in paragraph 7 of the report. The Engine has also continued to lead and support work on the wider initiatives aimed at pushing forward for every part of the region, including work on the Development Corporation and the Freeport, as detailed in paragraph 8 of the report. So on this basis, and with the review of the LEPs in mind, officers are seeking approval to fund these organisations until the end of the financial year. These are detailed within the recommendations of 1 and 2. Furthermore, as the government review of the LEP is imminent, we are suggesting as officers that we'll bring back any further funding requests to a subsequent meeting of the committee.
Thanks, Joe. Recommendations on page 9. Can you second this, Mike? Because you've seen you're going on the left. If you don't mind, Reg. Yeah, just second it. Do Mike then and second it.
Second that, Mr. Chairman, and reserve my right to speak.
Lovely, thank you. Comments and questions, please. Kate.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd be really interested to see the review when it's commissioned, and I'm sure the LEP's done some really good work, but to be honest with you, I've been a little bit disappointed about the impact it's had on economic development in Nottinghamshire, particularly around SMEs, and I hope that whatever happens next, that's improved more to benefit in Nottinghamshire. Just a couple of quick suggestions, kind of observations. I noticed on page 2, this is the end of paragraph 7, the transport, it mentions the HS2 hub at Towton. I'm just wondering what the fact that HS2 is no longer coming to Towton, how that, what that will happen in terms of that. What else was I going to say? I think that's it. That's me done. Sorry, thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Kate. I think in terms of the Towton bit, I think it's because even though HS2, that's not going to be the station, we're still keen that we utilise that area because it's a prime area for us to be able to get some real economic benefit from. I think that's the logic behind that. But if you want to add anything, Joe? No?
And just for completeness, of course, that there's still work to be done to extend the high-speed rail link from East Midlands Parkway to the north, with the government committing in the IRP to look at options to connect up to Leeds, one of which remains Towton. That work will be undertaken in the coming months by Network Rail, local partners of which Nottinghamshire County Council will be involved, as will Midlands Engine, to look at that. So it remains an option.
Quite quickly, I mean, what I would like a better understanding of is actually what was the impact of it not coming to Towton this time round. And I think I've asked that question several times. I know it's difficult, but I still don't understand that. I still haven't sort of seen actually what the impact, negative or otherwise, might be.
I think it's always difficult to prove a negative. So I don't know how we'd actually do that, but I think we've clearly demonstrated our ambitions should it have come there. I think what we'll understand it better once we realise what we can do there, despite it not being there, then I think we'll be able to answer your question. But I don't think we're at that stage yet. If that makes sense? Yeah? Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. I do struggle at times to understand what the various local boards, corporations, engines and all the rest of the, what would have been called some time ago, quangos, I dare say, do. But nevertheless, I think we have no real option at the moment to vote for this to the end of this year, 2022. So I'll be voting for the recommendation.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. I've got Steve next.
Yes, thank you. I agree about Towton. Of course, we are in a strange situation there because what we were expecting may not happen. Of course, let's not forget the integrated rail plan is only a recommendation. It's not actually been adopted as the forward. There is still a chance that HS2 could come through Towton. It's not a done deal yet. And also, it's one thing after another with the Towton area, which is actually integral to development of not just Broxtowe but Arrowash and Ashfield as well. That we have now been told, or we have been told, that the sale of Chetwynd Barracks is now being put back as well, and that was a huge area for housing in virtually everybody's plan in that part of Nottinghamshire, which is going to put huge pressure on districts and boroughs in particular to actually deliver their housing figures. Plus, of course, the fact that the City Council are well behind with their targets, and which is also putting pressure on as well. And also, just to point out that free ports aren't a new thing. We used to have free ports in this country, and they were abandoned in the 1980s because they didn't work. So that's an interesting thing to look at as well. But having said that, I will support the recommendations because we have to keep our toe in the water with these organisations, and it's better to be in it than not be in it.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. A bit of history for you. I was posted to Chetwynd Barracks in 1988. And when I was posted in 1988, I was pretty much told, don't bother unpacking because it's going to be sold very soon. So I feel your pain. Absolutely feel your pain. I think like anything that the Ministry of Defence own, it's not always clear cut because world situations change, as we all know what's going on at the moment. We might find that actually Chetwynd Barracks becomes a bit more used than it currently is if diplomacy fails to work at the moment. So I do understand that. I can imagine as a local planning authority, it can be quite frustrating, especially when you have your local development framework set up around it being sold. So I do feel that. In terms of the free ports not being new, absolutely. And not working to a degree, I think you're absolutely right. But actually, we learn lessons from things that don't work, and maybe free ports are going to be set up and set up differently, so that they have got a better chance of working. So, but only time will tell on that. But I think it's an opportunity, and as you say, we can't not support it because, you know, by not supporting it, then it's an opportunity that could go missing, and actually it might work. And if we all get behind it, that might be even better chance of it working. Was there any other question I haven't covered? No, within that. Are you happy with what's been covered there? Thank you. I've got Mike Pringle next.
Thanks, Chair. Just a general question, really, in approving the funding as has been asked for and the delivery of service. Are you happy that the delivery service has been on time and as we would expect?
I'll let you answer that first, and then I'll answer.
Yeah, it has, but yeah, go on, Keith. Sorry.
Yeah, from a perspective, it has. I've never been happy by the fact that we keep doing what we keep doing. I'm always striving for more. And one of the first messages I sent out to our partners when I took over chairman of this committee is I want more. I want more for the money. I think we're too settled. I think we're too comfortable in providing what we've always provided. And actually, that's maybe gone a bit stale now, and we need to lift. So I can assure you, I get my message out in the way I get my message out. So yes, we are happy as a council, but no, I'm not happy as a committee chairman. I think we can do better. Does that answer your question? Lovely, thank you. Anybody else got comments or questions? Okay, well, it's been proposed and seconded. All in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us now on to item 5, which is the Stapleford Town deal. Who's speaking of that, Joe?
Thanks, Chairman. Whilst I've been asked to introduce this report, I just want to make note that there are a number of officers and teams that are involved in this work. To name a couple, Sally Gill as the officer board member and Neil Gamble as the lead property advisor. So the purpose of the report is to provide an update on the projects included within the Stapleford Town Deal bid as a starting point, but also then to seek approval from this committee to continue to develop the plans for works to Stapleford Library and Stapleford Young People's Centre, allowing officers to then continue with these projects. So the Stapleford deal is one of 5 towns that are awarded funding, and there's £21.1 million to cover 6 main projects, which are detailed in paragraph 4 of the report. This report specifically covers the changes to Stapleford Library to provide additional learning facilities. The provision of this additional learning space is within the existing library to provide additional adult learning and entry-level skills, digital access, information, advice and guidance, which links to a number of employment opportunities. All the details of the proposed changes are included in paragraph 9 of the report. The second aspect of the work is the provision of the new central pavilion facility, incorporating sports and leisure facilities. This also includes a newly built young people centre and community outreach worker facilities. The details of this are included in paragraph 10. Just also want to mention there are a number of projects that are included which do have highway implications, and these will be covered in a separate report to the Transport and Environment Committee. So today the committee is asked to approve the principle of the improvements to the Stapleford Library, subject to the details being worked through and a further understanding of any legal and financial risks, and the same to agree the principle of the improvements to the Stapleford Young People Centre, allowing the opportunity for officers to further the detailed work and bring back to committee for any further approvals.
Thank you, Joe. The recommendation are on page 14. Can I have a seconder, please?
Second that and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? No, I want to make sure committee members might want to speak first. Any committee members got anything? Right, Councillor McGrath, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for inviting me today at short notice. But Joe put it very adequately as well. But just to give members an overall view, 2.5 years ago, we were thankfully selected to come up with a plan for investment within the town, and that plan had 5 projects. Joe's brought 2 of them to fruition, and we all sat down, members of the community, councillors, business people and all that, and we all sat down and went through a number of problems that we've had within the town for, well, I'm 61, so 61 years that I can remember. So we've never had no investment. So we sat down with young people, everybody, and we all put everything together. And thanks to the government for giving us the money as well, because it came as a shock to many of us, as we've all been fighting for a number of years to get some investment in the town. But thanks to Broxtowe Borough Council as well, and other people, we've all been helped. But the 5 projects are, as Joe's pointed out, one is a new community hub, which is the one which I'll say now, Keith, has probably got the most investment, because obviously that was decided by the powers that be, what went to what, which also entails the old, as we used to call it, the youth club, which will move to the community hub on Higgins Lane, which will employ more youth workers and all that, with employment chances and skills being learnt there. 2 is the learning facility, which is the library, to improve that as well. A bit more adult education for people as well, because we are a bit low on the scale, with skills. Hence why Stan went, a lot of places went in the town. So basically we have to get out of the town to try and improve our skills. The 3rd one is the enterprise hub, which involves a number of things, but this is more privately funded. Well, government funded, sorry, not privately. This will be an open space, roof garden, shops, families to enjoy fresh, the markets that you sometimes see the arcades, something along them lines. So that is part of it as well. The fourth one is obviously the connectivity, right, which the MP's been involved in, which is to get all the cycle routes round the edge of the town, because we've had a number of discussions. We're an old Victorian, well, Edwardian, Victorian town, and the roads are very narrow. So to improve a lot of things, we had the help of VIA. We can't do what we actually wanted to do, which was slow traffic flow through the town, right? So we've got a number of improvements to that. So we've gone for round the outskirts, Chair, right, to improve both facilities around that, i.e. pedestrian crossings around near the schools, which has been mentioned, you know, which leads you to the Erewash Trail, which is Route 67, which then gets you out, gets people more healthy and keeps them out of the town. But also within that, it's not keeping them out of the town. The community hub then links into, it's only 3 minutes to the centre of the town. So everything will link into that, because that'll have a gym, canteen, other facilities, mugger for the youth work, the youth club as I call it, but yeah, the youth club. And then that will be the pinnacle of everything to get people into the town shopping and this, that and the other. And the fifth is obviously the traffic calming measures. You must be aware, most members, that Stapleford's renowned for its humps, right? Well, right, but it's renowned, but obviously we've needed it because there has been some fatalities over the years.
Yeah.
So what they've done, we're looking at different ways to alleviate damage to cars, and they've come up, VIA again, have come up with some very useful ideas about slowing traffic down with platforms at junctions and all that. So, yeah, we just want, you know, to build on what we all want. And thank you for letting me speak, Chair.
Lovely. Thanks for that. I call them youth clubs as well. I used to go to Russell Youth Club, so you know, I want a young people centre as a youth club. I don't like this politically correct nonsense, really. In terms of the skills in your area, I know you're talking about this in particular, but the previous report was about some of the organisations we work with, and are we happy with what they provide and at the speed in which they provide it. Now, we've been very successful in, which has been at other meetings, to previous meetings here, in getting funding in towards skills development and helping people get back to work. So you need to speak to Joe's team to see if they can come and help you in Stapleford and around that area, yeah? So it's not just about this. This is great because this is giving local people the opportunity to say what they want in their town or village and everything. So that, and in terms of narrow roads, I live in Newark. I know all about narrow roads and the limitation that puts on you. So well done for getting the success. And I look forward to seeing it delivered, because it's all well and good getting money and having a plan. It's about delivering it now, and obviously we'll play our part in what we do in making sure that happens. So I look forward to seeing the progress of this and that it all works. Thank you. Any more comments or questions, Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. And any committee, it's always good to hear a local council speaking on behalf of this. I applaud Councillor McGrath for that, and look forward to this coming to fruition and the development being finished. I think you took the words out of my mouth. That now, here it is, deliver it, and let's see the benefits. So, fully support this.
Lovely, thank you, Mike. So, Kate, I wanted George to speak first because he's supposed to come in after. But anyway, go on. Go on.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose just to say this is great. Happy to support it. I'm really glad, and I see it make a real difference for Stapleford, because it really, really needs it. So it's great for this. I suppose I'm just sitting here thinking, you know, this is 5 towns in Nottinghamshire. Think of all the other towns in Nottinghamshire and across the country that are really madly in need of some investment and have been left behind, really. And I just wanted to say a word for them, really. Wouldn't it be good if the investment had been made over a longer period and there was more money now to do this for some of those towns that are actually in a similar stage for Stapleford? And I think it's just a shame, but I'm really happy for Stapleford and the other 5 towns. Thank you.
Yeah, I get your point, Kate, but actually there is. So there's a levelling up to phase 2 coming along at the moment, and a lot of A lot of the ones that missed out on phase 1 are now putting their bids together for phase 2. And I know actually Mike's area in Newark and Sherwood, so the Sherwood end of Newark and Sherwood, they're working very hard now putting a bid together in terms of there. So I'm sure there'll be lots of towns and other places that would be doing exactly the same. Could it be done for everywhere? Oh, absolutely, but it's like anything. Money is a factor, and it's about prioritising where you spend that money, and I think that's what they're doing really, making sure that people have the opportunity to progress. Steve.
Yes, just to update members on that particular. Obviously, we were very.
Sorry, I can hardly hear you, Steve.
We were very pleased that
it's the standard of these mics; they're not very good.
I'll move it here. We were extremely pleased when Stapleford was successful in this bid, and Councillor Maguire is quite right to say that compared to some other parts of Broxtowe, the amount of money that's been invested in Stapleford not has been as much. So for Stapleford to get this opportunity, that's fantastic. Just to advise you that we're waiting with bated breath for the white paper, because there are 2 bids for levelling up waiting to go off for Eastwood and for Kimberley, which have been drafted by the local communities in conjunction with their town and parish councils and Broxtowe Borough Council. Okay.
Just to put it in perspective, Steve, just so you're aware, from my point of view as the chairman of this committee, I'm keen that every single town and village in Nottinghamshire that puts a bid in gets it, because we can all only benefit from that. So I'm keen that the officers in my committee work extremely hard towards helping the parishes, districts and boroughs, or whoever puts in the bid, to make sure they're successful, because that's what it's all about, and I'm all in favour of it. Did you want to come in on any? So anybody else? Okay, so it's been recommended and seconded. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Obviously, item 6 we've done. And that takes us then on to item 7, the investment in remote meeting and live streaming technology. Who's speaking on that?
Thank you, Chairman. So the report in front of members today is around the business case for investment in remote meeting live streaming technology here at County Hall to replace unsuitable and outdated equipment to enable more efficient meetings to happen in a hybrid way. Obviously, there have been radical changes over during the pandemic in terms of how people are engaging with the democratic process, but also in terms of remote meeting. You know, we've had colleagues here today at this meeting from Oxfordshire who've been able to engage in a way that perhaps previously wouldn't have happened. So one of the things, though, that in terms of how Nottinghamshire County Council has approached this over the last few years is actually only delivering a temporary solution. So what you see here is really just something that's been kind of cobbled together to get us through the process. So working with our IT colleagues and working with some of the colleagues in this room, we've been looking at a solution that would be much more fit for purpose and would deliver a better audio visual experience as part of the process and better enable hybrid working going forward. We've also looked at a solution for some of our civic areas and our committee rooms B and C, because there hasn't been any solution for those areas either, and they're large spaces where we could do a lot more in terms of meeting technology and with hybrid meetings. And I'm sure a number of members have experienced meetings or committee meetings that have been disrupted because of the either poor audio visual experience, or just the equipment has failed and we've had to bring things in at the last moment. The report itself details what we're doing, just some of the things that are being proposed as part of the solution: large wall-mounted displays, better audio equipment, tracking cameras, the fact that members will be able to sign in with their ID badges and names will be available for people to observe as part of the democratic process, buttons for voting, all of those things, just to make it a much more realistic and much more sort of up-to-date experience. And that will be available in a number of meeting rooms as well as the council chamber. So, Chairman, I won't say any more. The recommendations are in the report, and I'll leave it to you.
Lovely, thank you, mate. Thank you very much. The recommendations are on page 31. Can I have a second, please?
Second that and reserve the right.
Lovely. Comments and questions, please. Kate.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. I mean, we've all experienced, I think, in this chamber meetings where the kit hasn't really worked. It is very difficult. I suppose the big concern is there's an awful lot of money. So I think what we need is some reassurances here before we stick our hands up for it. I think the first stuff is, what about the longevity of the kit? I mean, if we're spending all this money, if it's going to last sort of an awful long time, then it's going to be value for money, isn't it? But if it's going to be outdated after 2 or 3 years, then it's actually a bit more questionable, I'd argue. The second is, I know that we did have some money from government to cover kind of COVID issues. I wonder if there is a contribution from government we could use here, whether that's part of the funding. I suppose the other thing, has anybody done the sum? I mean, one of the things, as you say, Matt, that's been really good about this, you, Keith, is that people from Oxfordshire have been here today. So we are saving a fair bit, aren't we, in terms of the environment, in terms of car journeys and all the rest of it. So I just wonder, in terms of cost benefit or value for money or whatever, when it would have done this sum and actually worked out that actually in the long run this is actually going to at least it's going to be cost effective, if it's going to save us money.
Right, before I bring Matt in, if I may, just my perspective on it in terms of the cost and everything. Obviously, the scale and the amount of equipment we're buying adds, obviously, because if we're getting 80 of the mics, that's a lot times a lot, isn't it? So it all adds up into that. So it's about the scale of what we're doing. But if you look at some of the reports we've had previously, during COVID, I think we saved £1 million in terms of travel claims of people not having to come into County Hall. So that'll be offset, because I know we have to attend the meetings we have to attend in person, but there's lots of meetings that go on in this council that actually can be done remotely. And I think it's really important, especially when you're looking at social services and adult social care and health, it's really important that the quality of those conversations, that they can be understood and heard. Now, in this meeting today, I've had to ask Mike to bring his mic closer to his mouth because I couldn't hear. I could hardly hear one of the gentlemen on the Zoom or on Teams because I was really struggling because of the quality of the sound. And the mics we're looking at, the sort of stubby mics, and I think there's four mics within it, and it just really just pick up. And each of those is actually a microphone, is a speaker as well. So if you're like me, that's a little bit hard of hearing, it makes it a lot easier for me to hear what's going on and be able to then engage better. And then maybe I won't be misquoted sometimes when I say things. Okay, but I'll say that with my fingers crossed, my legs crossed, and everything else crossed. Does he want to come in on any of the other aspects, Matt?
Just to say, Chairman, in terms of the longevity of the kit, we've made it specific that this isn't fixed. We can move the kit around should we need to as part of the process.
Yeah, and it'll also be, if we have speakers here, that people join us, they will have a card that they can use, so that they log in as well. And having seen the demonstration, the clarity of sound and the clarity of the picture. So you have to make sure you have a shave if you shave. I can assure you it's that good. And the speed in which the camera goes to the person speaking, it's very quick. So, it's about those out there being able to sort of watch and listen to what we're saying and doing. I've got David next.
Thank you, Chair. This is an awful lot of money. This is way beyond what I was expecting. To be paying for a microphone and a TV and internet connection. It's way beyond, but it doesn't comprehend the cost value here or cost benefit. And I also note during the narrative of the report, it says it's grant funded. I can't see anywhere who grant funds this whatsoever. If that could be explained to me, because I'm not comfortable with spending £437,341 on internet connections. I'm not comfortable at all, Chair.
Right, before I bring you in on, firstly, it's not a couple of microphones and internet connections. I mean, you're trying to get your headline, I get that, but actually it's a lot of equipment and it's screened so people can see what's happening. Yeah, when we have presentations on here, it's giving people the ability to be able to do a proper presentation to councillors so they know what they're talking about. So when they vote, they're actually voting on something they can understand and see. So to describe it as a couple of microphones and an internet connection is what you said is not right. Yeah, it's actually a lot more than that, and it's actually about the functionality of this council. We have a responsibility in this council to function properly. This is all about helping that to happen. It's bringing us into this century. You know, at the last full council meeting, we had 70 people watching that meeting, 70, and we've got a pathetic little screen that shows us all together. Yeah. It's actually, isn't it right that actually when you get up and stand in this chamber and speak in this chamber, people can see that it's you and they can clearly hear what you're saying on their behalf. This is about openness and transparency and democracy. And anybody that doesn't think that we should be doing that, I worry about, to be frank. I know you want to come back on it, and I'm happy for you to do that.
Thank you, Chair. It beggars belief that we're spending this amount of money when we're voting in this chamber. If we're voting in this chamber, we don't need to spend this amount of money. That's a clear point. And my other point is that I'm having to support young people in my division to feed them out of my divisional funding money. And I cannot justify spending this on internet connections. I'm sorry, Chair.
Okay, and again, it's more than an internet connection. I hope that eventually sinks in. Glyn.
Yes, Chair. I mean, I picked up the fact of the grant, and I'd just like to have that explained to us with the grant, because obviously it's saying later on that obviously you're going to take the money from the capital programme. So I would have thought that would have been specified, you know, this grant is from X, whether it be the COVID fund or whatever, and that's where we were taking it from. So that for me, I think, you know, I'd like to see a breakdown of the costs rather than just that totality to see exactly what we're getting for the money, if that's possible. The other one is that, and I'm not against, you know, I believe we've got to be brought into the 21st century, and hybrid working is what people were doing. And I think that, you know, the government legislation currently, and until it changes, means we have to come in here. So I've got a bit of sympathy with what Councillor Shaw says. But then on the other hand, if the public are going to see us, we've got to make sure that what we've got is the best equipment to be able to do that. I mean, I've said for some time now that I bring my laptop in and clearly there's nowhere to charge it. So if it's not charged, or as I'm using it, especially on council day, the charge is going down, and sometimes you don't, you know, sometimes it does last, sometimes it doesn't to the end of the meeting. So, you know, yeah, I've been wanting little bits, and I was surprised it wasn't done when we had the previous refurbishment of this place, that was for some unknown reason taken out or not included within the plans. Another issue for me is about, obviously, just talking on page 30 of 54, 11, about the cost of providing a 3-year support package and licence fees. And I know that's been put into capital spend again, but would that not be a revenue, concern? Why is it being lumped in with the capital? And clearly, that does seem a lot of money. It's saying 102, which includes. I just wondered what the cost of that 3 years licenses and support package, and what we'll be looking at for the future, because clearly, you know, that's an ongoing charge that we're going to be needing. And the other bit is just it does mention the plan that was agreed in policy, and I've just had it up somewhere. We agreed some time ago, investing in Nottinghamshire, making the best use of council premises. That report that actually came under the former leader's name. And I just wondered, again, was any of these costs built into that? If not, why not? You know, because clearly Everybody knew even at that time that, you know, the world is changing, and you know, this council chamber compared to some is good in the sense of the shape, but actually in relation to being in the 21st century, it's not very good at all. So, as I say, I haven't got an issue about doing it. I think the cost does seem to be a lot, but then there are other building, you know, other places that are involved. So I would like to see what the breakdown of it all is, and clearly, is this the cost? And we're not going to be coming back in.
I can answer that.
You know, is this the cost? We're not going to be coming back or find that, you know, there's been another 200,000 or whatever slammed onto it, and actually we might as well build a new building, a purpose-built building. Well,
I think we are.
It'd be in Ollerton if you knew my colleague, because that's the centre of the universe, as we know.
Yeah, of course.
But clearly, you know, we don't want that. So, are these costs going to be contained within what you're saying?
Yeah. First of all, some good points there, particularly about being able to charge at your desk. You know, when you sat here and things like that. That's all part of it. So, you know, it's about making your lives a lot easier, so you can get on and actually be a councillor in the meetings. So that's part of that. In terms of the actual breakdown of costs, yeah, absolutely, and that's like why it's going to the finance committee at the next agenda in the next meeting, because they're the ones who actually pay for it. It comes out of my budget, and we have to agree to be actually doing this stuff, but it actually comes out of there. In terms of are these going to come back to this committee and ask for more money? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because if they are, they'll be in trouble. Yeah, there's a contingency built in because we have things like the building and asbestos and all that lot. But we've had ARC in to do an assessment in terms of all that. So we're hopefully not going to have any surprises. But there's a contingency built in if we do. If these have to come back to me to ask for some more money, they know I won't be happy, and I'm sure nobody in this committee will be happy either. So I think they've got the answer to the question if they ask for more money. Do you want to bring up answer any of the other points, Matt?
The only one I want to answer on, which hasn't been addressed, is around the ongoing support. So, because of the nature, again, because of what people have experienced during this, during the pandemic in terms of the temporary solution, this gives us a proactive management and maintenance of the kit and equipment, and ensures that the meetings run smoothly. You'll all have experienced perhaps presentations that were abandoned or meetings that might have been abandoned. So the cost of the support package includes all of that maintenance and proactive management of the service.
And again, the cost of that will be at the finance committee meeting, Glenn. Yeah, so those documents will be public, so you'll be able to have a look at exactly what the breakdown is. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. I've only been in this chamber since last May, about 8 months. And I have to say I've been surprised and disappointed on the quality of the audio visuals. I've just invested last week in a new pair of spectacles, and I struggled today to see anything on that screen. And I have great difficulty sometimes in hearing the microphones, as you referred to. And I came to the pension committee last week, which was very much remote presentations, and one key presentation was abandoned and deferred to the next meeting because it didn't work. The technology was not fit for purpose. I mean, the size of this council, the overall budget, where it sits in the UK and what it does, surely it, at the very least, should have a modern 21st century up-to-date audio visual in this chamber and the other ancillary rooms. If not for us, at least for the public out there, there's nobody in this public gallery again. I often look up there, I rarely see anybody. I suspect there's quite a few at home looking in. And if we get a better system, I would hope there'll be even more, because that gives us some transparency and hopefully more interest. I don't personally think £37,000 or thereabouts is a massive amount of money given the context of this authority and its budget overall and what it's all about. I mean, you need the right tools to do the job, I believe. And I just don't think we've got the right tools to do the job. I won't repeat myself too much. I can't see half the time. I can't hear half the time what's going on in this chamber. And it needs to change. If it don't change, I ain't coming back in 4 years' time because I find it really hard.
Don't give them a motive.
Thank you.
You're just giving a motive to vote against it now, then, aren't you? so,
Right. Well, it depends how they view me, really, what I say. But there we are.
I got that in before they did. Steve.
Yeah, can I ask two questions, and I'll pause after my first question because it's been asked twice and it's not been answered.
Okay.
It actually states in here on page 32 that it is fully funded from grant. So,
just wait then, because you're right, and we haven't answered that. Can you answer that, please?
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks for bringing that up, Steve.
It will be part of the capital programme, and that will be the subject of the finance report going forward. I have to confess, I need to check the grant situation and what the grant wording is in there for, having looked at that.
Not received a grant from government or an outside body to pay for this.
It's part of our capital programme.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come back. That changes my view, Chair. As I say, I looked on this report and was saying, well, we've got a grant to build this, to do this. Then that would be ludicrous as a council to refuse a government grant or on this if we could take the opportunity. If you're telling me now and that is why I also queried the other bit about, hold on, are you talking about money in capital? Is it revenue? Whatever. As the report stands there for me, I don't know. Has Boris written it? It's misleading.
Well, I think up until just then, Glenn, I was agreeing with you, but yeah.
I mean, members, all I can really say is the comment in paragraph 17 is written by the capital accountant who is responsible for managing the spend in relation to this. So it's not really the responsibility of us to work out where the money comes from. Capital accountant has advised that, and it says quite clearly, it's fully funded from grant. I can only seek that we can offer you a better explanation of which grant. Outside, I mean, I've just checked, and unfortunately, he isn't online for me to be able to ask that question. But
hang on, before you come back.
Again,
So
I'm aware that in the finance committee papers that are going to the next finance committee, that's where they will regularise this. I can only suggest either asking the question at that point, or we can confirm it for you in writing after the meeting.
So just for clarity, because I know that there's a bit of concern here, of which I actually share. So what we're saying is the finance officer that's deal with this has said there's a grant. A grant will be included in the paying for this. It's just that we don't know what that grant is, or are we saying he's hopeful that there'll be a grant? Because that's really important. I need to understand that.
So the way the papers are put together, once the...
You're listening, Glenn? Is explaining?
So the way the papers are put together is we are responsible for putting forward the recommendations. Our finance and legal colleagues then, as you can see, put their initials and the date next to a set of comments. In paragraph 17, the relevant finance officer has stated that the cost is $437,000 and will be fully funded from grant. I apologise that we can't explain which grant that is, but as I say, I can try and get that clarification.
Right. I'm not stopping you speaking. I'm going to let you come in. Right. So for clarity, the finance officer that's putting the finance package together for the purchase of this equipment is saying that it's coming from a grant. Okay, that's what he's saying. It's just that we don't know what that grant is. Okay, that's what 17 is actually saying. Okay, that's for the clarity of it. So come back now, Glenn.
Well, we've got a duty as councillors when we're voting on financial issues to understand fully the financial package. And I mean, I understand what you're saying, but and no disrespect to Matt, in the sense, I mean, Matt went, "Oh no, it's capital money, it's not a grant," and that, you know, so in the sense of what. For me, anyway. I mean, I know we've just been saying, well, what we're going to do. I mean, my personal opinion is that the report should come back, and that I don't believe I can make a decision not knowing the full financial details.
Right.
And fully support if it's totally a grant. I haven't got a problem at all with it. If you're telling me that it's related to the previous decision that was taken in 1920, and there was about 3 million earmarked for refurbishment of this council building, this part of the building, which was an ongoing 5-year programme. And as I say, I've just looked at the report. Then again, in that sense, it's already been earmarked. I ain't got a problem with that. If you're telling me we don't know where it's coming from as such, and then I've got difficulty, and I personally won't be voting for a report that I don't know the full financial implications.
Right.
So
I get that. Right. Let me just do this first. So, right. We deal with what's in front of us. Right. The finance officer that is putting the money together to fund this equipment has said that it's coming from a grant. He said that. That's in the report. The fact that Matt didn't know what that grant was called is not a reason to go against what the finance officer is saying, that it's coming from a grant. Does that make sense? Because I understand you're making a, well, the finance officer said it's coming from a grant. We've got enough answer from the finance officer. What I'm explaining to you is in this report, 17, it says that it's coming from a grant. That's what it says. The fact we don't know what that grant is called, what relevance is that, really, honestly? Yeah, before you do, Steve, I'm going to let Adrian just come in, because it might mean you don't have to.
Thank you, members. Thank you.
Is he all right to continue? Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So our 151 officer has confirmed that it's coming from a COVID funding grant that we're able to use to enable the council to adopt more modern practice and continue to respond to new ways of working. That'll be reported to Finance Committee at the next meeting. I hope that can assure members that it's coming from a grant.
Okay. Now, Steve, what do you want to say?
A COVID grant for what? Sorry, could you just repeat that?
Thank you. Yes, it's coming from a COVID funding grant that enables us to use and enable the council to adopt more modern practice and continue to respond to new ways of working.
Okay. Do you want to come back, Steve?
Still not certain, because I've not seen any COVID grants at borough council level, which is where most of the grants have been going to, that enable us as councils to actually invest that money in something other than helping people outside of the area, or by funding work that we're doing to help with the COVID pandemic. I would still argue that would not be a good use of money that's been going to us to help with the ongoing COVID pandemic. I just cannot. You see, at the end of the day, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the people out there who, quite rightly, and I understand this, they don't know the difference between capital and revenue. They'll see their council tax bills spiralling, and the cost of living spiralling, and at the same time the county council is spending £437,000 on technical equipment. I've never felt that as a councillor I can't do my job sat in this room. I've never felt that. Well, you may raise your eyebrows, but
I do raise my eyebrows.
Yeah, I think
having been misquoted by you on several occasions.
I think you'll find, Councillor Gurney, that I've been re-elected for 18 years, so I think the people I represent think I can do a councillor's job well. So I would rather you not be sarcastic in that regard, and that's really, really below you.
I wasn't being sarcastic.
Yes,
I've been accurate.
You
have misquoted me.
You think
you have misquoted. I'm not arguing with you.
You think I'm a poor councillor?
No, I never said that. No, I've never said that.
But that
Again,
was
you're
your
misquoting
inference.
me.
That was your inference.
That's why.
And
No,
you're
it's
very
not my
good at
inference.
inference. I am
Look,
not going to
move
support
on.
this
Move on.
because I
Make your
tell you
point
why.
about this.
The
Make your point about
I
this
am
paper.
doing. The last Conservative administration at Broxtowe spent over £100,000 on technical equipment for the new council chamber, and it's rubbish. I am not going to support something until I see the details of what we're buying and the breakdown of the costs, as Councillor Guilfoyle has said. I will not support it. Thank you.
Right, I've got Scott next, please. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman, and I thank Adrian for the comments in relation to the Finance Officer's comments. And I go back to how this debate originally started and the points that Councillor Foll was making, that we're sort of in that modern age and it shouldn't possibly just be assessed in the silo of the equipment for this chamber, but the additional benefits in the terms of not just saving money, but also our contribution to reducing carbon emissions. I think in the point of the financial comments of point 17, I think the words fully funded from grant are key. I further reinforce that with the views of the officers via email, and I would say from a committee's members' point of view, that's our opportunity to hold officers accountable.
Thank you, Scott. Mike Pringle. Sorry.
Thanks, Chairman. I won't muddy the waters anymore. I think, sadly, this issue is something that's not going to go away today.
Can you move your mic? Sorry, Mike, I struggled.
Until we have clarity on this. And I think it's a sad thing because primarily the offer of this is modern technology, which is where we should be looking at to provide a better service and to all be accountable for what we say in meetings and in chamber. There is an issue with the clarity of the funding, but I think that the idea of providing this at this cost at £2,000 a week, which is basically what we're talking about, is relative to where we are.
Yeah, so thanks, Mike. I think I understand the misunderstanding in terms of where the funding was coming from, but actually I think it's been clarified well enough now that it's in paragraph 17, and we've had the finance officer contacted to clarify the situation on that. So you'd all take that into account. Reg.
I'm quite surprised at this debate going on so long, and that we mistrust what our finance officer, our 151 officer, has said to us. I've worked with him now for 18, 20 years almost, like another councillor in this chamber, and all we've ever had from is honesty about how the funding is. He said where the funding is coming from. We need the technology. We need to get on the forefront of technology. We are behind, and that there's a very, very small sum of money when you take that we're a £1.4 billion council trying to operate a service to the public, that we can spend this time mistrusting what our finance officer has said to us. I trusted, and let's get on to the vote, Chairman.
Well, I've just got. I agree with you on the trust element to that, but I've just got a couple of people I want to let come back because I don't want to stifle debate. I've got Scott first, and then I've got Kate afterwards, and then I'm going to close it down and we'll go for the vote.
Thank you, Chairman, and apologies for just dropping back in. It's probably a point I should have made in the first comments. In the terms of this, if and it's decided this afternoon and this then progresses on to the Finance Committee, in that sort of transition over to the Finance Committee, will they be provided with sort of a full breakdown of the costs that Councillor Guilfoyle was alluding to?
Yeah.
We can provide that to
Yeah, absolutely. No problem at all. It's all transparent. It's all public document. It's going to go to the Finance Committee. We're not trying to hide anything. It's all out there. That's why we've brought it to this committee. Kate, you wanted to just make a point.
I just wanted to come back and say this isn't about mistrusting. It really is not. What it is about clarity and transparency and understanding, really. And we need. I would have liked to have understood what the grant was for, what the kind of priorities are for that grant, so we could understand what the spending was in relation to other things that people have mentioned in this chamber. I think that's something we need to know how much this is prioritised. I think that is just the key issue. And really, if that information had been in this report, which and we'd had more detail in terms of breakdown of the expenditure, I think we could have all have supported it much better.
I get your point, Kate, but the reality is, paragraph 17 clearly states where the money's coming from. Clearly. The fact Matt didn't know what the funding was, what it actually was, you know, it is about trust. The finance officer said where it's coming from. It's very clear. He couldn't make it any clearer. We've had confirmation of it because there's some doubt within this committee, and we've had confirmation about where it's coming from. So there's no doubt. It is very clear where the money's coming from. It's unequivocal. It's there. So I don't get your point on that. Yeah, I get it. There was some doubt during the actual meeting, but it's been clarified. Yeah, so that's what I'm asking people to vote on. It's a clear point of where the money's coming from and what it's being used for. Right, that's we'll go to the vote then. All in favour?
Can I have a recorded vote, please?
Yes, you can. Well, it just record, isn't it? In terms of, we don't have to have a second or anything like that.
Yeah, if it's a recorded vote for everyone, it needs seconded.
Right, just do the seconder then. Lovely, thank you. So, okay, we'll go to record. No, I'm happy for,
for a recorded vote.
Well, I'm happy
committee,
for it to be recorded.
Needs someone to move it and someone
No,
to
I think it's good that it's recorded. Right, so we do the vote first and then we record it, or can we just go straight in to recording it?
No, what I'll do is I'll read out councillors' names in alphabetical order and ask them what their vote
Okay,
will be.
lovely, thank you. Can you please make sure that you're using microphone when you vote, please? Thank you. I want it to be very clear.
Yep, so I'll just ask you to say for, against or abstain. So, Councillor Adair?
For.
Councillor Carlton?
For.
Councillor Carr?
Against.
Councillor Cubley?
For.
Councillor Fole?
Abstain.
Councillor Guilfoyle?
Abstain.
Councillor Girling?
For.
Councillor Introna?
For.
Councillor Pringle?
Abstain.
Councillor Shaw?
Against.
And Councillor Upton?
For.
So we had 6 votes for, 2 against and 3 abstentions, so the motion's carried.
Lovely, thank you very much. Moving then on to item 8, operational decisions, annual review, quarterly update. Who's speaking on that? Is that you, Matt? Sorry, Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is the regular quarter report we bring to you regarding the operational decisions that have been taken during the period. This is from October to December, and also this is the annual report when we seek your confirmation of continuation of this form of dealing with decisions of this nature as set by Policy Committee in 2014. So the report is seeking your approval to that continuation and to note the operational decisions made, which are listed there for you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Recommendations on page 35. Second, please.
Second, that reserve the right.
Any comments or questions? Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to pull out the point on 3917, that the licensing of the former Newark depot, and I'm speaking more with my public health hat on now, but I just wish to place on formal record a thanks to officers for making that transition from the car park at Castle House across the road to ensure that we had capable testing capacity in that side of the county, but also ensuring that the car park was returned to support economic activity in the run-up to Christmas.
Yeah, thanks for that, Scott. I'd like to thank him as well. My emails stopped immediately, it happened, to be fair, and the phone calls. So, yeah, no, I think it's working really well there as well. So, well done to everybody involved. Anybody else got a comment or question? Okay, go to the vote then, please. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us on to item 9, the demolition of the surplus parts of the Rushcliffe Leisure Centre. Matt.
Thank you, Chairman. So the report in front of members is around the demolition of the surplus parts of Rushcliffe Leisure Centre building and design development of the Rushcliffe School expansion. members will know that there was a number of previous reports around the expansion of Rushcliffe School, which was around expanding for additional pupil places. This report is in two parts. It tackles one, the demolition of the vacant building at the site, which is still within the ownership of the county council, which is regarding the leisure centre elements, and then also the additional funds to take the design to a detailed design stage for the expansion for school places. The report highlights that the school themselves will undertake the demolition through their contractor, which is a known contractor to us, and also will take the design development forward. And we have employed ARC, who are overseeing that design development process. The recommendations are within the report. There is some funding that is supporting this, which is an element of their Section 106 contributions from developers, and there is a mix with regard to the school place planning and also our own demolition funds as part of that. So the report details that, and also in terms of the recommendations, details the next stages.
Thank you, Matt. Recommendations, page 39. Seconder, please.
Second that, reserve the right.
Okay, comments and questions? No, lovely. We'll go straight to the vote then. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 10, disposal of wood courts, Walker Close, Hatton Gardens, Newark. Neil.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is the results of our latest sale that's coming through our disposals programme. This is Woods Court, which has been vacated since last Easter. It's now come to market. We've had the bids in, and obviously they're outlined in the exempt appendix to the report.
Okay, any comments or questions? No, I have. Well done. This is brilliant news, because it's not going to be demolished and used for housing. It's actually going to have a good use there, which is what Newark actually needs. So it's in my divisional patch as well, although I didn't really have any influence on it. But thank you very much for all the hard work in doing that. I think we've got a bit at the end, which is exempt. So if you want to go into any of that, we'll talk about that in a minute. I've done the record. Did I not do the record? Oh, I didn't do the recommendations. All right. I was excited about this good news for my division, really. Okay, the recommendations are on page 42. Seconder.
Second that, reserve the right.
Thank you for pointing that out. Anybody got to add to anything of that? Okay, all in favour? Against? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us then on to item 12, which is the work programme. Anybody talking on that? I'm just going straight to any comments or questions. No, the recommendations are on page 2. I think it's just a note in seconder.
Second that.
Right, any comments, questions? No. Right, before I close then, we've got item 13, which is the exempt items. Does anybody want to talk to that paper? Because if not, no need to read anything out. We don't have to go anywhere. We can just close the meeting now. If you want to discuss any of it, please indicate, and I'll go through the spiel. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you.